Broadly, obviously, you have an incredibly strong grasp of what has been happening. Are you more positive now than you were before this trip? If I were to use a little stock parlance, are you bullish on the region?
Sure, I'm positive, more positive now, and I am bullish on this region. I think that because of President Trump's visit, we have drawn closer ties to these three countries he visited, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. But I also think we need to be cautious about extrapolating from what's happening with those three Gulf countries to the rest of the Middle East. I think it's important for your audience to get the nuances. The capitals that he visited are very different from the capitals of other countries. Even Abu Dhabi and Doha look nothing like Beirut and Baghdad and Tripoli and other capitals, Cairo, in the Middle East. I've been to all of these cities, and so it's important to also to understand that there are problems in other parts of the Middle East that are not being addressed by this visit. And some of them are discussed behind the scenes, and that's a really good thing. I think it's a little bit naive for Hillel to say that the UAE is a model for the rest of the Middle East, because the UAE is nothing like many other parts of the Middle East. The UAE is a very small population, very homogenous, very rich in resources. That's very different from Iraq, for instance, which is multicultural, multi-sectarian, multi-ethnic. It has big divisions. It does have a lot of oil. It's very different from Egypt, for instance, also is not as energy rich as those countries. It has a very massive population, many poor, destitute people. Lebanon, also not rich in natural resources, very multi-sectarian with a lot of violence and disputes inside the country. So all of these countries need to be also addressed. And it's not the same approach for each of them. In order to have peace in the Middle East, it's going to take more than the Abraham Accords. I applaud the Abraham Accords. They're a very important component of making the Middle East more stable. But the Middle East Accords don't address what's happening inside Gaza. I've also spent a week inside Gaza. And if you go there, you see it's extremely poor. It's been starved by the embargo. Hamas has misled the people of Gaza. And I agree with your guests that Hamas needs to go. But we also need to address then rebuilding Gaza. Most of these countries that President Trump has met with, at least privately, they've told him his plan to move 2 million people out of Gaza is not going to work, and they don't support it. So we have to think about a plan that allows the people of Gaza to stay in their homeland. We get rid of get rid of Hamas. We get a new governing authority that doesn't embrace Islamic terrorism. And then we have to rebuild Gaza so that people can live in prosperity and have the things that they need in order to be the humanitarian support, food, water, access to healthcare that they need in order to live healthy lives. And so some of those things are probably being addressed behind closed doors, but this trip isn't going to fix those things.
I'm not suggesting that you can just sort of take 2 million people and throw them off their land, but I am suggesting that status quo, frankly, David, has not worked out terribly well. What would be your plan?
Well, I agree with you. When I say we, I mean the global community. I think the United States and the United States president and this president play an important role in brokering a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. That's the first step. And then you need to come up with a plan to get rid of Hamas, put in new governance inside Gaza that is supported by the people but isn't embracing terrorism and violence. And then you need to rebuild Gaza. And the plan for rebuilding Gaza has to involve these three countries that President Trump visited because they're the wealthiest countries. They have the funds and the resources to help rebuild Gaza. You also need to get the countries that are closest to Gaza, like Jordan and Egypt, to support this. And they may play a role in providing peacekeepers or at least training Palestinians who have not embraced violence to be police inside Gaza. So there needs to be a holistic plan like that. And hopefully some of that is being discussed by President Trump, but it's going to take leadership by President Trump, not just pushing forward on the Abraham Accords, but pushing forward on a ceasefire and a plan to reconstruct Gaza.
Always great to have spirited conversations. I love this stuff.